Hi, everyone. I'm going to talk to you about fashion and sustainability. But let's warm up with a little quiz. The quiz has to appear. I have to use my, of course. Yes, you see, I'm a professor and I'm often distracted. Sorry. There it is. Yes. So, first question. If you are 20 years old now and you drink 1 liter water a day, you have already drunk enough water in your entire life needed for making how many denim trousers? 100 or 500? Hundreds. Let's see. One. Yeah. Next question. The amount of clothing thrown away in the US every day weighs as much as how many elephants? And then, of course, you need to know how much an elephant weighs. And that's 5,000 kilo. So 2,000, 20,000, or 2 million? Yeah, just shout. 20,000? 2 million. Yeah. Waste is a big problem in fashion, as you can see. The last question. In 2015, the CO2 emission of the textile industry was equal to all international sea traffic, all international flights, or both A and B together. C, indeed. C, yeah. Just to say, yeah, to say what is the problem. There is a big problem. And why should we change the system? Because we'll have to. The proof is there that the world is warming up. We have more and more hurricanes. We have also forest fires, and we have these extreme weather circumstances. So lucky there is a reaction from the people, also from kids, from young people, and that's really hopeful. The question now is, can fashion save the world? I realize this is a very provocative question because you all think fashion is the problem. Yeah, it is. But because it has such a huge impact and it becomes responsible, it could also save the world. Fashion is one of the world's most important and polluting industries, employs over 75 million people worldwide. So it represents a lot. But what is the problem? The problem is a systemic problem, but also on a micro level. I will explain that later. The problem is fast fashion. The system started in the 70s of previous century, and it was based on making profit. And the fashion companies wanted to sell as much as possible. And you got an acceleration of the system. And with the result that now we see really clothing as really consumer goods. It's even hyper consumerism. And I think the symbol of this hyper consumerism is Shein. We thought we reached the limits with Zara, with H&M, but no, Shein, the business model is even worse. They make a dress for 9 euros. It's impossible. If you make, it's not the value of a piece of cloth. It's impossible. There is a problem in the system. And so we have to change the system from fast fashion to slow fashion. So, but how are we going to do that? And I think an important thing on the systemic level is to make from a linear system into a circular system. And so the take, make, and waste system is really a problem. And so we need to make it circular. And I will go through every chain of the value chain with you, and I will give an example how we can do that. Of course, on a more systemic level, it is also based on the insights of Kate Raworth with the donut economy. So it's easy to remember a donut, everybody knows it, but not to eat, but to just visualize where we want to go to. So It is not starting from profit and from economic profit, but from social foundation. What are our resources and how do we deal with that? How can we do things in a different way? And of course, take into account the ecological ceiling and the people factor as well. So let's start with the resources. How do we deal with resources? And materials matter. There is a lot of innovation also in Flanders of finding new materials by technology. I can give you the example of Yuma Labs. That's a fashion brand that is making glasses out of plastic. And the good news is also, because in the past, sustainable was often boring. Now you can be fashionable, but also sustainable. So that's the good news. That's one example. But you see also a lot of innovation with fish skins, with mushrooms. So we try to make other, for leather, for example, products, but with other kind of resources or recycling resources. The design. Also, the designer need to be aware of sustainability from the beginning. It needs to be integrated in the design. And you can design for eternity, but what you can also do is, evaluating crafts. Craft is, per definition, slow fashion because it's handmade and there is a lot of creativity behind. We should value that more. Production. Production is the basic problem, I think, from this global fashion system. It's again, since the 19th that we thought, oh, let's produce in other continents, low-wage countries, and in the West we will consume the product, and probably there will be a balance. Of course, there was no balance. It led to a really huge problem, as I said, because the wages are much too low, and there is really, it's a system of exploitation. Yeah? So what we should do, is to produce clean, more local, and with respect for the resources and for the people. It's last week, it was in the news that Rana Plaza, it was 10 years ago that it happened, and it was a real disaster. But it was also, it's become a symbol of what is going wrong in the fashion system. And it made us aware that we needed to change the system, because it was in the media, and the media are, also, of course, also important to inform us about that. Let's go to the retail. Retail, you see that there are more and more new business models. And I think that's also a way to go forward. And so we have to do things in a different way. And for example, you have the label Dresser. And Dresser is a rental model. So you can have a membership, and based on that membership, you can rent pieces of clothes, 10 for a certain period, and then another time. So it's more complex, the system, but a rental model. You can swap. Probably a lot of you know that already. You have these digital platforms like Depop and Vinted, where you can swap your clothes with other people. It's very profitable also for these digital platforms. And then you have the second-hand market. We call it more and more also the vintage market. And for a lot of companies, it becomes also a very profitable model. So be aware, but at one hand it's good because indeed it's giving a second life to products. But just to illustrate, an old handbag from Chanel is even more worth than a new one. So you see that a lot of companies see also the profit in that model. So that's a reselling model. Then you have the recycle, so that is taking the profit down and use the resources for other purposes. I don't know if you know the brand, it's not a brand, it's a company, Resortex. They found a new technology. It's really innovative. And what is the innovation? So maybe you don't know it, but jeans are very unsustainable. Why? because it's very difficult to take it down. So the stitches are very hard. So they found a technology that the stitches can be solved in a very easy way and in a very sustainable way. And they received already an award for that because it's really an innovation. Then you have the upcycling. So that means that you make make a new product out of old clothes. So it is a new creative product. And more designers are also working through that model of upcycling. So it's also a good use of old resources. Then you have free repairs for life. So you have, we are so used to throw things away if after a while, very short time, or if you need something new, let's go to the shop. So if we would love more our clothes and we would take much more care for them, and so repairing is again in fashion. So the brand Nudie Jeans is doing that, but last year also Xandres offered that to their clients. It's also a way to create this loyalty with your clients. And so I don't know if you know Black Friday, but Black Friday is based on the fast fashion. It is a day that all the shops give discount in order to sell more. And so Xandres, as a kind of statement, did the opposite, and they said all the clients can come to us to repair the old pieces from Xandres. So, but not now. What about the consumer? About us? What is the attitude? We are involved in a research project together with Thomas More in Mechelen, a Tetra project, and they did the first large survey in Flanders about the consumer behavior in relation to sustainable fashion. And a lot of cliches were confirmed, but one of them is that we find 80% of the people find sustainability important, but when it comes to behavior, there is a problem. So it's still the price that is dominant in our choice. Another thing is that the communication about sustainability, so labels who are communicating about their sustainability, people are in Flanders a bit suspicious about it. So they know that there is a problem sometimes of greenwashing, but being suspicious is not good. Being critical is good. Because that's indeed another problem that now arises, that sustainability is in fashion. So a lot of fashion labels are claiming now to be sustainable. H&M is doing campaigns as promoting themselves of being sustainable. Be critical, because it's impossible that they are sustainable at heart, because their business model is based on selling more. So they know people want sustainable products, they market it like that in order to sell more. So that's a contradiction. Only to give an example. So what can you do on a personal level, individual level? First of all, buy less. If there is a party tonight, don't go immediately to the shop to buy something else, but see what you cherish your clothes and choose well and make it last. There is someone who launched on social media the 30 wear rules. And that means that each piece of clothing in your wardrobe, you should wear it 30 times in order to be sustainable. It's a challenge, also for me. But from our research, we found out that people in Flanders average wear a piece of cloth 7 times. So you see there is still room for improvement. Be a critical consumer. So look at the labels. Of course, the brands need to be transparent as well, but even so, look a bit further and not just, oh, H&M says it's sustainable, so I buy it, and my conscience is okay. No, be critical. Look deeper. Buy local. A lot of these new brands, and I really see young designers who really want to do it in a different way, but these new business models are still very hard to survive. And some of them, others not, as always in the economy. So buy local. Take care and repair. And love your piece. It's these vintage products. They call them also pre-loved. Yeah? So cherish them, love them, and then yeah, swap, share, rent, and buy in a sustainable way. So every time you spend money, you have to think, because every time you vote for the kind of world you want. Thank you.